Hello everyone, welcome back to a Preppers Fireside. There's three of us, but there will be four. Andy will be joining us soon. Introductions are easy. Hawkins, he's the face, obviously. Brian's here, he's the brains. Miss Worm's there, she's in charge, and I know nothing, I'm just an incompetent host, so welcome to the Fireside.
Evening, mate.
And you said not to start.
I'm just saying, I'm just giving the rough introduction so everyone knows where they stand, that's all. There's two starred comments before you even start, which I have to highlight. Rod Solar became a YouTube member, thank you, Rods. And Leanne Mack became a YouTube member as well. Thank you very much for them. Really do appreciate it. Tonight's is, you might have guessed from the thumbnail, is all about this war game. This was produced months and months ago, before a lot of the stuff that's happened. We've had episodes 1 and 2. Without going into details, because we'll do that shortly, what's your general thoughts? Hawkins, I'll go to you first, but I'm going to shove you to the bottom because you've no face. There we go.
Yeah.
Hawkins, what was your general thoughts on it?
Loved it.
Yeah.
Found it gripping. It's what we talk about, isn't it? It's but coming from a is it a more trusted source than us? I don't know, but coming from a more public facing body than us, it's great for the general public to listen to. So no, I really enjoyed it, mate, and I'm eagerly anticipating the release in a few days of the next episode.
I think it's tomorrow. I believe it's tomorrow. Brian, what was your initial impressions of it?
Plausible. Entirely plausible.
Worryingly so.
Yeah. And hopefully it'll give people a wake-up call, because I think the ignorance levels amongst your public about how denuded the UK defences are, they should have a good hard look at it. And this might do it.
And the question is, how many general public do you think will pick this up, though? I mean, we didn't know about it till Miss Worm pointed it out for us, so is it findable? Is it that?
Sadly, not enough, isn't it?
Not really.
Yeah. No.
It's a bit as findable as a 72-hour thing.
Yeah. This is it. Well, yeah, the 72 hours, they're not even 70. They don't put hours on it anymore. They say few days. You need a few days of food, Brian, a few days of water. So as long as we can all survive a few days, we're good. Anyway, right, let's dive into episode 1. What's the agenda is today for everyone watching. We're going to go through the 2 episodes that we've already played and just discuss them, what we thought about it. And then we're going to go into a bit more of the prepping side of things after we've discussed them. So we're going into episode 1. The opening crisis was 2 RAF F-35 pilots shot while in like a officer's mess type thing. And at the same time, the spoiler of the episode was it was called False Flag. A bomb going off on a Russian naval base, and Moscow blaming spies and London obviously denying it. So how believable? I mean, the only thing I was a bit skeptical on is how the hell would they get a gun into an officer's mess? But how believable is that as an opening plot line for you, Brian?
Very plausible. Hi, Andy.
Evening, gents.
Evening.
Very plausible. And even if they don't get them into the officer's mess, it would be naive to think that they don't know. You're training a fighter pilot who's costing several £1 million. It's an investment of a nation, right? In this guy's training, and the plane without the pilot's worthless.
Mm-hmm.
They've got families, they've got homes. Do you think for 1 minute they're not scouted out where they are? And a conflict happen would get slotted.
Yeah, well, they should be fully aware of this. Andy, when you joined, did they still show the old Shark Watch videos?
Yes, mate, they did.
Yeah. Do you want to explain what Shark Watch is?
Yeah, so Shark Watch would be if you're ever out on the drink and you're in a bar somewhere, somebody would be designated sober, and they would be on Shark Watch, and that would be looking for any honey traps, anybody dodgy who's looking to kidnap one of their squaddies, anybody who's looking to do harm to you, and anybody that was dodging who was looking to to do any harm to the squaddies, one guy would stay sober, and it was designated Shark Watch.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, if I'm right, that designated because of Northern Ireland. I believe.
Yes, yeah, that's what that was how they were portraying it on the actual initial videos that you saw and stuff like that. And they were also saying it's not just going out drinking. It's like if you're at the train station, if you're going out on leave, don't go out wearing your jackets, your clothes, etc. So they do put a lot of effort in to not be identified in that way, or at least try.
So back in 2014, mate, we were banned from leaving camp in uniform, and that was in Newcastle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
they were worried about what was going to happen.
Yeah, well, I have no doubt. It's weird because you used to be able to go out in like your number one sort of thing, you know, and or when you go and see your family and what have you. But there's just none of that anymore, is there? No. Hawkins, the opening crisis, the 2 pilot shots, and the naval base being bombed. How believable is an opening gambit?
Yeah, I don't see any issues with that, mate. If that was me, I would have done the same and probably worse. So, yeah, as Brian said, there's a lot of money gone into the pilots, and it's easier to take the pilots out than it's to take an F-35 out in midair, I imagine. So, strike for the weakest link. I imagine there's foreign intelligence services who have names, addresses, family members, where they go to school. You know, if you to take your not be naive, I couldn't imagine the FSB or whoever wouldn't have that data compiled.
Yeah. And we didn't hear much about the media at that stage either, did we? So there's a COBRA meeting convened, which is obviously like a bunker style emergency meeting for the government, and they were talking about the potentials of an attack and the signals of attack, and a small fleet, a large fleet gathering in the Atlantic, so coming in from the west rather than from the east, sort of thing. Andy, how it all started to pan out should alarm bells been raised sooner? Do you think?
To be fair, mate, in that, and it's a great 2 episodes, and your 2 videos were great as well. When those two fighter pilots were taken out, I was surprised that nothing bigger was made of that.
Yeah.
Because to me, when I listened to it, to me that was the declaration.
Yeah.
If you're able to go onto British soil and kill British troops, for me, I'm surprised nothing was made a bigger deal of that. To me, I thought that was the first.
Is that because of deniability though? Because if it's a lone gunman who says he's working on behalf of Joe Bloggs, they can just deny that, right? So
true, mate. But I mean, even if they didn't tell the public, I was expecting maybe a COBRA meeting over that, because who, you know, even if Russia are saying it's nothing to do with us, you would think that their security services and MI5, MI6 would know who it was, even if they weren't going to say it publicly. You would like to think that somebody was saying to Ben Wallace, look, this is the information we have, and this is who we think did it.
Yeah. Do you think the reaction times, Brian, are a bit slow there with a fleet like that off our coast? We should have been acting first?
Acting with what though? That's the problem. The fleet that we had when we did the Falklands, it's about 20% the size of it. Mm-hmm. The destroyers they built to replace the Type 42s are mostly broken since they were built. So you could send Captain Pugwash out with a shotgun and probably have a better chance at the moment.
There you go, get him signed up.
I think that's the problem. It shows in stark reality that they were aware that they're coming, but send them out and risk a provocation. What if they're just posturing a new posture from a position of weakness? What do you do?
Well, we do often. Hawkins, the fleet off the coast, and there was a sighting by a ferry, I believe. One of the submarines surfaced and then went back down again. An actual.
Just saying hello.
You what?
Just saying hello. Making sure they were known.
Yeah, but I mean, surely that at that stage, they should have been releasing a press release right then.
It's like Brian says, well, you can do a press release, but what struck me about the podcast probably more than anything was, I think it was like a real kind of dig to the Americans, to Donald Trump, was we were powerless without trying to get NATO involved. The second podcast was all about trying to get NATO involved, wasn't it? And it was, how can we, without NATO, we haven't got the force projection, we can't do this, we can't do that. And it really was, how do we get NATO into the fight? And
yeah,
it opened my eyes a little bit more, I suppose, to the current situation of NATO, of how vulnerable we are. Like, look at the fireworks that are going off in the Middle East now. If that was to be the UK on the other end of them, what on earth are we doing to protect ourselves from that?
yeah. So the first episode was a bit of a cliffhanger ending, not a cliffhanger much, because the second episode was already released, so we could go straight onto it. But it was left with the critical question: shoot down or strike back. How realistic? I want to just open this up to anyone who wants to jump in. How realistic do we see this panel that's playing the UK government in line with our current government?
I think they're more capable than the current one, which isn't saying much.
Yeah.
I think the dilemmas and the situation and the resources would be the same. How the person would react on the day is obviously, it's very hard to predict. But I would agree with Andy. I would rather have the hypothetical government that we listen to than the shit show that we've got just now.
Yeah. Anyone else? Hawkins, do you think they're an accurate depiction of a UK government?
I'd give them a 80 to 90% sort of realism rating. Yeah. Being that most of them are they've been in those sorts of positions. Not like they've just picked us up and thrown us into the podcast. They have all come from the political parties and pretty high up positions. So, yeah, I do think it's a pretty realistic scenario and response that's coming from the actors, in inverted commas.
Yeah. I'll just have a look at the chat, see if anyone is saying anything. Shows like this are entertaining, but it's clearly propaganda to get the public behind massive military spending, says World Survivalist. I don't think it's propaganda. It's not advertised enough, and it's not out there enough to be propaganda. And plus, it'd be on the BBC, right?
I would disagree with that. As much as I value the opinion, and everybody's opinions are different, I don't think we're spending enough. I don't think we've been spending enough for decades. And that's been exposed sharply.
Yeah.
We pretty much knew all of it anyway, but it's been exposed sharply by this podcast. And I don't think it's unrealistic.
No. It's go on.
I think the scary thing about it is, mate, even if you, obviously I'm biased because I was in the army, but even if you let the army and the RAF go into disrepair, which is pretty much what they've done, they just wasted it away. Over the past 3 decades, I'm surprised not a single person has said, you know, guys, we are surrounded by water here. Maybe we should be, you know, pumping more money into the Navy as opposed to the RAF and the Army. That's the thing, that I still can't wrap my head around.
Yeah.
That not a single person, or maybe there have been, you know, maybe just they haven't been listened to. That's also quite high up on the list.
It's priorities, right? They'd much rather spend and build some houses and appease the population to get the votes more than anything else.
I do think like what Hawkins was saying there in episode 2 when he tries to get NATO on side. I thought even when I was in that NATO was toothless, and it was just a big bluff. and that second episode for me, mate, shows I believe that's how it would go down. I think NATO, mate's toothless. Even if we got NATO involved, how would they help us? Like nobody across Europe has been spending as much as they should have been on defense, like Brian said, and we've all been too reliant on America. Now Trump's came in and said, do it yourselves. All of NATO now we're thinking we really are toothless because we've got no backup.
Yeah. Well, on to episode 2 then the crisis obviously breaks out. 40 incoming missiles. And can anyone remember how many they intercepted out of 40?
Was it 8?
8. So, I mean, that's dire already. 32 missiles striking the UK, We've seen what the missiles striking in overseas in the current conflicts can do, damage-wise. That's devastating just for step one, isn't it, Brian?
We think we've got space to play with, and space equals time for a reaction. So the thought process is that we'll have time to respond by fighter aircraft or interception. That argument's blown out the water when you've got a ballistic missile sub off the coast that gives you seconds, if not minutes, to have a response. And it's just, I think it's quite a realistic depiction. If anything, I thought it'd be worse than that.
Yeah. 40 missiles, only 8 stopped. Hawkins, I mean, what did you think of that?
I'm surprised we've got 8, to be honest. Again, there's not much. Our destroyers are apparently our main sort of defense against that, and as we don't really have many of them in service, my biggest thing was, what would the 32 be headed towards? That's where my head is. Is it going to military base? Is it going to energy infrastructure? Is it going to communications? Like, what are they going to go and hit? What's their target list?
Initial targets, I would say, would be any sort of air bases, any sort of counter-attacking offensive places. Then it would be infrastructure after that. Andy, you've got an insight into this. How realistic? Could we have even took 8 out?
No.
No?
I think you would be lucky, mate, if you'd hit 4. The only thing that I didn't think realistic about that was the loss of life. I thought it would have been heavier with 40 missiles. If we take that, say we take 32, and the targets that they hit, I was surprised by how low the casualties were. That's the only thing that I thought. Is it
because it's overnight and it's military targets like planes and stuff like that? And
well, I suppose, mate. Well, they said they hit Heathrow Airport, didn't they?
Yeah. But if it's 3 o'clock in the morning,
yeah, you would say that, mate. But you've still got all the you've still got all the staff that work there. So hitting 2 people is quite low. And then they hit Plymouth, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe they didn't get more people at Plymouth. I mean, I suppose and like we're saying, it's still a story, it's still a program. So if they'd have took out 60,000 people, it wouldn't be a good program, would it? So maybe they've done it to ramp up over the episodes.
Or maybe they're not quite getting all the numbers and statistics through straight away. But yeah, I get what you're saying, because I think 32, I mean, if it was 36, like you say, 4 didn't get through. 32 explosions of the magnitude that we're seeing overseas with different types of missiles.
I mean, I was thinking about it as well, mate. Like, we have no ammo. None.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact we've taken out 8 missiles, the next time they fire 40 missiles, we're taking out nothing. Because the ammo that we did have is now being used on taking out 8 missiles from the initial volley. So the more rounds they fire and the ammo's just depleted, more missiles are eventually going to get through.
Can we dust off antiques? I believe in overseas they're using flak cannons from old flak cannons and stuff like that. Maybe we need to go to the museums and start wheeling stuff out. The UK Type 45 destroyers struggle. Only 1 is seaworthy. Just 8 out of 40 incoming missiles are intercepted. The government reaction, obviously, we convene a meeting. That's what we do every time. Grappling with the scale of the Russian escalation. There was no... Everyone was umming and ahhing in that point. Did you not think? Do you not think there was no decisiveness, like, we strike back, we strike hard, we strike now sort of thing? You know, there was no Cobra Kai in there.
There was no sense of urgency, mate. That was the real striking thing. At that point, everyone, to me, still seemed far too calm. And I appreciate you have to be calm in that situation, but there was no sense of urgency from anyone. It wasn't if Ben Wallace was then saying, right, this is what's happening. You here, you here, you here. Half an hour, I want options on my desk. I want this, I want that. I think at one point, Matt, I heard him say to the Faz Lane guy, the nuclear deterrent, by tomorrow, I want the option on my desk. And I thought, tomorrow? So
it might not be a tomorrow.
Like, there was no sense of urgency from them, which was quite striking.
But do we think, I mean, that could be for the fact of this whole tit-for-tat warfare. So the Russians are justifying it because of this false flag. So that's their response. So I suppose part of them are thinking, well, that's it now. So until we retaliate, they won't do anything more. Right? Like the ball is like not like a sustained attack, more like a game of tennis, and the ball has landed in our court now, and then we've got time to react.
It could have been me, but and I agree you, but in the same breath, if I was Ben Wallace, I wouldn't be dictating 24 hours to people.
No.
Like that guy at Fazlin, I would have been like, you've got an hour, and I want the option on my desk. Like the other chiefs of staff would be saying, you've got an hour, and that's it. Like it's non-negotiable. An hour. I want everything you know, and I want the options on my desk. I wouldn't be saying, oh, it's Tuesday. No, dinner time. Wednesday.
Go home, see the wife and kids, have a snack.
Take your time. I wouldn't have been. I was shocked by the lack of urgency.
What's your thoughts on that, Hawkins?
Sorry, I didn't think that was coming to me. Yeah, again, but if you look at how everything that's going on in the world at the moment is going off, it does seem to be a delay and a response. I understand what Andy said, but if you look at over East now, it seems to be like Israel do a strike on day one. Iran have then licked the wounds, fired back a few days later with the old true promisey things. Then it's happened again. Then there's been a pause. And even now, I know Israel stepped it up a bit with the F-35s over dropping ordnance at the moment, and they've been doing daytime strikes and whatnot, but it's still been, I'd say, reasonably low-paced warfare than what I would imagine it would be. Like I thought there'd be thousands of ballistic missiles coming out on day two, to be honest, but it seems to be a measured response, and I think we'd probably be a similar sort of thing, especially if we've not got much to fight back with. You've really got to bite your tongue, haven't you, and decide, right, we need to come up with a measured response that makes us save face a little bit. Sounds a little bit scary, but actually we've got something in the back pocket. Let's not use all three missiles at once. We'll use one and keep the other two for a rainy day.
I think the thing with that is, right, mate. So in this scenario, we are Iran and Russia's Israel, isn't it? In that situation. So what I don't like about it is, in our situation, Russia are dictating the pace.
Mm-hmm.
Same as Israel. Israel dictating the pace over there. They sit back. They know they've got the bigger stick, and they can do what they want when they want, and they're pushed by no one.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't like about the scenario. That's why I don't like the lack of urgency. It's as if we're just sitting back and we're like, well, we know they have the bigger stick, so we'll just let them dictate the pace. That's what I don't like about it. And maybe that comes from me being in the military. You know what I mean? If we're getting the whole point of if we ever got ambushed, the first step was to win the firefight.
Yeah.
And now you're dictating the pace and you're dictating what goes on. That's why I don't like the lack of urgency from Ben Wallace, etc. in that program.
Yeah. Brian, what do you think of the lack of urgency? And more so, do you think that's being portrayed accurately to what we would actually see?
I think it displays psychology and human nature, because if you imagine a child in a playground and the bully's stepping up to them and they get punched in the nose, some kids will go turtle and hope they don't get hit anymore so they won't hit back. Other kids will turn into a flailing ball of fists and fight back.
Mm-hmm.
But this is pretty much the same, although it's a simplistic way to portray it. I think it's
flight, right?
Yeah, and I think it's fairly accurate, the portrayal. What I would say is, though, that if they give up, they didn't have the initiative to start with, just off the back of what Andy said. And if you lose the initiative, you've pretty much lost, full stop, because it's always going to be slower to react than act. And one of the people in the podcast was advocating a counter-strike.
Yes.
You may have limited resources, but if you don't use them, you could lose them. For all they know, the munition storage depots could be the next target, or the planes could get zapped on the ground. So take your shots while you can.
Yeah. Cool. Right. We apologise for Brian's dial-up internet. They'll get broadband to Scotland one day. You're very pixely, Brian.
That still works.
I can't see it. It's just a pixel blur. So this was the most shocking bit for me in that second episode, was the calls to NATO and the US. probably, I say shocking, but probably is shocking that they portrayed it. I feel like it was deadly accurate, but suddenly we literally had everything pulled out from underneath us. What's your thoughts on that, Brian, for the call that they did to US and NATO, the responses they got from them?
It's the world we live in. It's the world I expect to live in, and I'm not surprised in the slightest. I genuinely believe that's how it would go.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
What's the alternative? See if Latvia get invaded tomorrow in Lithuania, and they took them within a couple of days, and then they said, right, this is Russian territory now. We'll not go any further. But if anybody attacks us, we'll go to war with the rest of Europe. What do you think NATO would do? Because I think they'd cave.
Oh yeah, 100%. I really feel the same way. Andy, the Americans were portrayed as like, yeah, we don't really want to do this, but Russia had got there first and spoke to them about this. How accurate do you think that is with the current regime over there?
So I think it's accurate, mate, for one reason. For the main reason why I thought that was accurate was because, so my time in the army, mate, was during the GWOT, like the Global War on Terror. And I think the UK government's hand in NATO was, well, we're the main fighting force alongside the Americans in Afghan for 20 years. If anything happens to us, we'll play that card and we'll use that as leverage.
Yeah.
Now that Afghanistan's finished and we're not fighting with them anymore, what incentive is there really for America to play ball with us? We're not on a mission with them anymore. We're not supporting them anymore. We've got no alliance with them anymore. You know, that finished, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
It might be even longer. So our whole card of, you know, the US will back us up because we're fighting with them, that ended 4 years ago. And I don't believe anyone's taken that into account.
Yeah. Hawkins, do you think that's how the Americans would stand on this point? They've kind of give us hints. Trump's kind of give hints at that by saying, if you don't pay your bills, why should we come and help, right?
I do, yeah. But I do agree with Brian. I think if it was like a Russia expansion into the eastern NATO right now, would we all go help? I don't know. Article 5 doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to war or you have to support with troops, does it? It just means they get together, they have a meeting, they discuss it, and they go, right, what are we going to do? So is every country got the backbone, got the public support to actually get stuck in? Do we have the resources? Do we have the troops? Do we have the munitions? Yeah, very skeptical to whether the alliance would come together as it's portrayed.
Mm.
The French will save it.
Well, I was thinking what would happen if they took over France, because I'd be like, oh, don't worry about it. But
wouldn't notice. On the NATO front, Taffy said, NATO is slowly falling apart. What happens then, boys? So, I mean, we think this NATO bluff has been called. We're going to speculate a bit into, obviously, we again are ending on a cliffhanger with this one saying, you know, are they going to escalate? Is it going to be nuclear, etc.? So we don't know. But NATO's bluff's being called. Is that it? Is NATO done as soon as that bluff's being called? Because no other country can then rely on it, right?
I think so. It's dead.
Yeah. And does that... Andy, I think we spoke briefly about the Gibraltar thing. Mm-hmm. How clever a move that was from Russia.
Clever, mate. It's so clever, and it's so eye-opening as well, mate. The fact that now they've give control of the Gibraltar border back to the EU. Yeah. Like the people who write it, that is so clever. That the fact that they've put that in there, and now next thing you know, something similar's happened. But like I said, mate, I've been in. I've thought, even when I was in and I saw the state of NATO, and that was 10 years ago or close to, I thought it was toothless then.
Yeah.
And it's definitely toothless now. Everything, mate, when you go on exercise, mate, with NATO and you do like NATO type exercises, every single thing, mate, is underpinned by the Americans. Logistics, money, most troops, everything is underpinned. You take that away, even if you line up all the NATO countries together, they haven't got the wealth and the the resources and the kit and the equipment that the Americans have got. So once you take that foundation away, the entire of NATO falls flat.
Yeah.
And in this program, Putin knows it's toothless,
Yeah.
which is why he's had a pop.
Does he know that in real life, Hawkins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he does. But the only thing I was thinking of in that situation was, with Trump in power now, for instance, and something was to pop off, do you not think that Trump, being the businessman that he is, would basically sell his armed forces to NATO and say, right, well, if you invest this much money on like a Lend-Lease thing, we will then come in and put boots into Europe to assist? I could see him putting a price tag on it of like the UK 50 billion paid to the US, and then all of a sudden the cavalry comes over from the US.
They did it the First and Second World War.
Yeah.
For me, mate, that Trump loves being popular, doesn't he? That's his whole thing. Loves being loves being the center of attention, loves being loved by his American support base. Nowhere on this planet, mate, are the American public going for that. To send their boys away again to a foreign country to fight, I don't think you would ever do it, and especially if it comes out that there's price involved, and we'll send our. Imagine how bad that look in the press for Trump. President willing to send US Marines to UK to fight Russia for £3 million, and then you extrapolate that to how much a Marine's life's worth.
Yeah.
Big political disaster for him. It would be done.
Well, it defies the whole point of his ethos of America first, right? It's going to be a case of, all right, okay, good luck. If they start to cross the Atlantic, then we'll worry about it. Chronicles had a question, well, multiple. Do you agree with the UK government moving immediately to nuclear option as their only actionable response? Surely they would carry on fighting long before that kit became an option. Fighting with what? Is the question there, right? What do you think?
The reason why they went straight to that bit is that's our only option.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah. What about the deep strike they spoke about, putting pilots at risk just to send a message?
So that mate is an option. Say you send 4, only 2 come back. We've probably only got 8 planes, so you've just lost a quarter of your planes to do this deep strike, and that's if it works. After that, they're then going to send another volley of missiles because they're going to retaliate. Then instead of having 8 planes to strike down 8 missiles, you've now got 6.
Yeah.
And it's just going to get worse and worse. I appreciate it has to be an option because technically it is one, but that nuclear deterrent option is the only thing we've got.
Okay. Brian, you're the Prime Minister. Lord help us all.
God help
what's your response at the stage it's been left at now? Deep strike with the planes, some other conventional warfare, completely back down and negotiate, nuke 'em. What's your response at this stage?
It's a tough call, isn't it? The conventional strike, I would probably risk it because chances are they're going to get zapped on the ground anyway, and see if they'll step back for the brink. But I don't think it would be worthwhile sending a couple of planes. It would have to be something meaningful. And also they've got some conventional cruise missiles on the attack boats as well. So they could hit the airfields and stuff, try and take out some of the backfires, the blackjacks and stuff. It would need to be meaningful to force them to take a step back. And once that's done, then say, if there was any major loss of life, a line in the sand that you would consider an existential threat to the state, and you would have to respond with everything in the arsenal. Dangerous game though, because if they then attack and you do nothing, what do you do?
Well, Brian, you've been overthrown by rioters and thrown out of government, and we want a Yorkshireman, so Hawkins is now the Prime Minister. What's your... Send the engineers! No, what's your response at this stage then, Hawkins? How are you reacting to this?
So, if I'm sober...
Would like to think so in the middle of a COBRA meeting.
Well, I was just
Chin.
saying, if you're sober, you'd have to. You can't play the nuke card, can you? Because let's be honest, Putin hasn't played the nuke card. He's not done it, and he's had a hell of a lot more thrown at him than what
But he
we've
threatened
done.
it.
He's threatened it, and I've got no problem with us threatening it. So that's my sober responses. There'd have to be a tit for tat. So, like you say, if we've got any tomahawks off the US that we can throw at them, or if you want to potentially waste an F-35 or two and throw them in there to do something and try and just cause some serious damage either to one of the naval bases or something, like literally a tip, actually hit the naval base this time and actually be us doing it. Or you do drunken, you've had 10 cans of Stella and you say, fuck it, we're not being good. We can't go toe to toe with them. We literally just go for a first strike. But first strike, what do the British subs carry? Is it 32 missiles?
If they work.
So
They're not
they're
fully
not full
armed.
armament, no. About
Mm.
half of them, I think. So 16, but you've got about 8 on eight heads on one rocket, haven't you? So
3.
And the last
No.
3 test fires have been completely.
Yeah,
Goosed.
that's worrying. Yeah.
The problem with the Tomahawks bit as well is, in that episode where I think it was the second one where the Americans said we want everyone to de-escalate.
Mm-hmm.
This is not, if we've got American Tomahawks, I can imagine that discussion's being had where Americans are like, do not fire the Tomahawks we've given you, because that is then dragging us into it, because Putin's going to use that against us and say, well, the Americans give the British Tomahawks to fire at me, and they've now used them on me, so now America's attacked Russia.
So it's not ours, it's a lease hire.
in this instance, mate, I believe it would be.
Yeah,
especially if they want to de-escalate things.
That's all right. Well, the Yorkshireman's been overthrown, and it's your time for the Prime Minister's seat there, Andy. So, what's your approach to this one? The response you're going to give at this stage?
I think, mate, you would have to. For me, mate, the second Trident sub would have to be deployed.
Yeah,
and purely for its own safety, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not going to incept more missiles at Faz Lane.
Yeah.
So it's safer below the ocean than it is being set at Faz Lane. So that's what I would do first off. And then second off, I would be putting in the major thing that we lack more than anything is ammunition and resources. So I would be pooling everything I had, and I would be calling in favours and everything that was owed back to us for as much ammunition as possible. And that would purely be, mate, from a defence point of view. We have to have something to defend the country from missiles. Because if we can't, they could just send 40 volley, mate, once a week and just beat the British public into submission. Like Brian always says about the power grid, I agree with him. Send a volley of 40 missiles and just aim at the power grid.
Yeah.
It'd be screwed overnight anyway.
Yeah.
Is there nothing we can do about? Would nobody target specifically this fleet that's off the coast rather than the deep strikes into Russia? Should we not be targeting the immediate, close, clear, and present danger there, than going after impact?
So, before that, mate, world survivalists just said there, the US have no say in how the UK uses weapons, even if they are from the US. Sure, they don't. We could still fire them, but we fire them Tomahawks, then try going back and asking the Americans for help.
Yeah.
That's the part of being a politician. You could fire them, I agree with you. They can't stop us, but you fire them when the Americans say no. Then what you're going to do in future when you ask for more help? They're just going to say, well, you didn't listen to us before. Why would you listen to us now?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the question you asked before that, mate? Sorry.
I was just saying, would the fleet not be the Russian fleet that's off our coast not be the primary target over deep strikes into Russia?
It's a possibility, mate, but the problem with that is, if you take out one of their fleet, the retaliation is they're going to take out a Type 45, the only one we've got left in this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I say, mate. Everything is dictated to by the person with the bigger stick. And this entire thing is being dictated by Russia because they have a bigger stick. They've got more weapons, they've got more troops, they've got more resources, and they can afford to do what they want.
So, I mean, with that in mind, should we not just back off and say, please don't hurt us, Mr. Putin, we'll do what you say? Is surrender going to be the option on the cards here, Brian?
Can I just raise something into the, just to cheer you up even more? When the Type 45s were launched, they took Harpoon off them. So standoff AS anti-surface weapons, they've got the deck gun. So just to manage expectations on that, they were going to put, I think it was NSNAM on it, or the Norwegian one. But
Yeah.
I don't even think they've got them yet. So as it stands, they've got a gun. The best option would be to send the escape boats out, and they could probably level them with the nuclear attack boats.
Right. Okay. Well, there you go. We'll have to find out what happens in episode 3. We've got a ream of questions here. I'm just going to go through before we move on to the prepping side of this. Lee from the Bug Out is in just in time for us talking about the prepping side of things. Go to the Bug Out shop for all your prepping needs and on-time deliveries and great customer service, unlike some other shops we know in the UK that we won't mention.
He's putting us all to shame with that walk.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah,
That was quite a trek.
Yeah, cracking video there, Lee. Chronicles became a new member as well. Thank you for that. Really appreciate that. Phil Hull said we need to wake up and spend. Look forward to 5% coming in with the 3.5 on defense, 1.5 on cyber and infrastructure or more. We all know they need to spend more, but when you put it down as we're going to spend more, but in 10 years' time, because you've only got 3 years left in power, it's a bit ridiculous, to be fair. It needs happening now, not in 10 years' time. They won't bomb Wales. There's nothing here worth going at now, says Rich Security. So there we go. Wales is perfectly safe. Why do we not have the Patriot system, says Trade.
They're all in Ukraine.
Well, pretty
Never
much,
mind
yeah.
Patriot.
We've never.
You've got about 9 skyscraper systems.
But would I be right in saying the powers that be? Do you think, Andy, think we've never needed it? That's why we don't have it.
Yeah, because it's been too reliant on America.
Yeah,
for far too long, mate. And to be fair, I agree with Trump on that. The amount of the money that's been put in the defence is shocking. Like Will Survivor said earlier, mate, USA have been putting in 66% of NATO's budget. 66%, one country. Like, it's ridiculous, mate, that we've. I mean, I was looking the other day of how much Putin spent. Who's spending in 2025? He's spending 6.8 of his GDP, and that's 145 billion, I think, British pounds. It works out at. So. And like the reason why we don't have the Patriot system is we've relied too much on America, and there's just been there's been over reliance on NATO, mate. In my view, I think everyone saw that NATO is this great big white shark that's going to take everybody out if anybody dared to attack a NATO country, and I think people are waking up to the fact that it's toothless, especially without America.
Yeah, it's a gummy shark. We've seen that one from Chronicles. Follow-up question: would we help others? So would we help? Do you think if the shoe's on the other foot here, if it's Germany in this situation, say for argument's sake, would we then turn around and be the same in the UK as in, oh, sorry, no, we can't help, we don't want to get involved? What does anyone think of that?
Again, you're in the same situation, aren't you? What we're getting involved with, as in what are we using to fight? Like, you could go over, if you could rally the entirety of NATO, then I think we would join in. But as one individual country, if the rest of NATO weren't keen on getting involved, what difference would we make to Germany to defend them?
Yeah. But
I think we would, because the British have always demonstrated they would help out their neighbours, even to their own detriment in every war that's came along.
Even though none of them are going to help us.
Well, that's it. Everybody's your best friend when they want something.
Yeah. Would the Prime Minister Bombardier help other countries?
If the Bombardier was Prime Minister, mate, the military wouldn't be in this. Wouldn't be in this particular shit show.
Yeah.
So, I think it would depend on the country.
Even if they're in NATO, so it's just a NATO country, whether they're no matter who they are.
To be fair, mate, I feel petty after listening to that episode too. And I feel like if somebody rang me up and said, "Oh, you know, Andy, we need help," I'd be like, You're on your own, mate. Like you were on me in episode 2 of the War Games.
Yeah, but it was a pretend thing, Andy. Save us. Thank you for that question. Turns out we would help. Camping Kings, I personally think the West is destroying itself from the inside out. Therefore, we are putting ourselves in a vulnerable position going forward. Scary times indeed. Taffy Nige, so we're back to deck chair, sunglasses, and a bottle of Jack then. That's, yeah. You don't have to worry. You're in Wales. Apparently, it's not going to be targeted at all. So, if this was happening, how long do we think it would take before people would go out rioting? This is a good question, because the first we've heard of it as the general public, right, is missiles incoming, right? And the one area that's probably still got a working siren and still might have gone off, but all the rest of us didn't know until the house was shaking. So do you think, I mean, we seem to riot for a lot of things these days. Do you think that would be the response in the UK, Brian?
No, the rioting would be after. People would run home first, because all they know at the moment is that scary big glowing rocks are coming from the sky. So there's no point rioting and stealing the TV with no electricity yet. That comes later.
All right. But let's say, for example, this has happened, it's the next day. If they've allowed this time to wait for a UK response, what's the general public's response at this? Is it just blind panic?
No, you'll have the bean eaters. They'll be out on the streets with flags saying no war. That will be the first thing. There'll be peace protests in the street. And then you'll have counter protests fighting with them. Depending on how badly we've been spanked, you might have martial law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Andy, do you think riots would be on the card at this stage, or is it all happening too quick for that?
I don't think so, mate. I think at the immediate outset, I feel like there's probably more chance of cohesion than rioting.
Yeah.
You've all
the blitz spirit.
You've all got a single enemy to focus your anger and frustration, outrage at. Now, if like Brian says, mate, it was going on for 2 months, and you hadn't had electricity for 4 or 5 days every week for a month, and the British government just sat there doing nothing, then you might start to see a different reaction. But from like the main outset, I can see people coming together and rallying against it more so than rioting.
Hawkins, your thoughts on that?
Similar, yeah. No rioting, not at first, because again, just looking at what's happening over in the Middle East, you're not seeing that sort of behaviour in Israel. And I've not seen it in Iran either. From what I've seen, there'll be panic and everything like that, like mass panic. But at the same time, you would just get those opportunists the next day who would just go, fuck it, let's just go and smash some shop windows and rob some TVs for the fun of it. So you're going to have that in certain urban areas. Do you know what I mean? Because any excuse, isn't it, with some people? But no, I think on the whole, Andy's probably said right. I think the country would come together a little bit until potentially you're looking at a long-term sort of power outage, infrastructure hits and things like that.
Yeah. Lee has said the West, I feel, is in dire straits financially, and 2 ways of escaping it, bringing new digital era, is war or a crash. Either way, it's a distraction. There you go. The deeper conspiracy and meaning behind it, maybe.
Sorry, for him, you can walk out the problem. Us fatties are going to be stuck in the house, mate.
Well, take a leave. Couch to 5K. Get on it. I'm sorry, I am going to miss comments today. I was 40 odd behind, then I've just had to scroll down, so I do apologise if I miss any. It's just the way it is. Right. 164 people in here. Don't forget to smash the like button. It's really appreciated. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Don't forget to check out Scottish Prepper 73 and the Bombardiers channel as well. They give up their time for the Fireside week in, week out, and they'd appreciate your support on their channels as well. And I'd appreciate if you go and do that. So thank you for that. They'll tell you all about their channels at the end, so hang around for that. Prepping now. Okay, so let's just put this to a side. We're waiting on episode 3. We all know what we would do as prime ministers and stuff like that. But has this changed any of your mindset on prepping, Ryan?
No. Not in the slightest.
No.
No.
No extra urgency, no realizations, anything like that.
No, to be honest, mate, I'm happy with the progress that I've made personally for the moment. If things kicked off majorly and they were mining the Strait of Hormuz, I might go out and get some more fuel. I'll certainly be keeping the cars. Well, I don't have a fucking electric car now, but the wife's car and the van will be getting topped up regularly. Other than that, no.
Yeah.
There's no real urgency for us. Sorry.
No. Andy, have you thought any more about prepping? Like, is it expedited it at all for you?
Yes, mate, it has. So I've been talking to Brian about the whole solar thing. So my solar panel arrived on yesterday, and then I spoke to Brian because I don't do stuff when I've got Brian there. I know that's cable. So I messaged him yesterday and asked him what cable I needed for my Anchor Solix, and that came today. So it's listen to those 2 episodes, mate. Finally kicked me up the ass because I've been quite open having that solar was where I wanted to go, but I've always been too lazy, to be honest. So listen to those war games, mate, kicked me up the ass, and then Brian said that that solar panel was good and it was on sale. So I grabbed that and I've grabbed that cable. So I'm going to do a review of that tomorrow. So it's kicked me up the ass, mate, in terms of solar, because that was the one thing I was really lacking.
Hawkins, we know you want a moment to admire your new solar, but has the war games affected you at all, or changed your mindset on prepping?
No, because short of a warhead coming down on top of me, I'm probably prepped for anything else, water, food, long-term disruption to manufacturing, or being able to buy products from the supermarket. I carry a stock of everything in the house. That's probably a bit of my OCD and a bit of prepping, to be honest. But no, and now I've got the solar system that Brian nudged me in the direction of getting the whole house set up. Very happy with that. The only thing that I might do...
I'm getting a lot of blame here.
I know, look at you. He's peer pressuring everyone, and there's me living like it's 1863.
I am tempted to email the installing company who did mine and just ask them for a quote, and I certainly am not doing it, so I should not smile as much, but just a quote on another battery and inverter cell to mirror this, so I've got double the capacity.
This is obviously going to happen. It's like,
it will happen at some point, but I do not envisage it happening for like 12 months or so. But I'm just going to get a quote, just so I've got it in the back of my head as what it'll cost, because it's that redundancy, isn't it? 2 is 1, 1 is none. I mean, I've got ways that I could use. I've got other inverters and stuff that I could use to take the power from panels if needed, but having a whole other setup would just be lovely.
Just if Mrs. Hawkins is listening, this has got fuck all to do with me, right? Because I can't help but feel there's a lot of partners going to be looking for knives for me.
Brian!
I mean, it'll pay for itself, because already the amount of money I've seen saving in my daily energy expenditure. I spend £8 a day in electricity normally, so this is I'm paying like £1.50 now.
Hey,
so
you got praise off
already.
You got praise off my wife, Bri, today.
Good God!
You've both drank the Kool-Aid. Listen, guys.
When she asked me how much a solar panel was, and she was wincing, and I said it only worked out like 93 quid. She was like, "Oh, that's I thought it would be more expensive than that." And I was like, Brian recommended it, so she was happy with that. So
I bought 3.
You've
all drank the Kool-Aid. Listen. It's Brian. We all know about Brian. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. All right. With this in mind, I want to go into the prepping side of things with if this was happening. So Conscription. We touched on it before in the past. I've heard of somebody today that some new contracts at larger companies are now putting a clause in their contract, and they talk about conscription. which is very interesting that they're actually talking about it in contracts. If this happens, blah blah blah, as part of a employment contracts, you know. So you'll
in terms of you'll keep your job, Mike.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So do you know, like if you were going to join up for the TA and part of your contract is saying you could go off and do 2 weeks here, there, and everywhere, it's part of that.
Well, I think that's still a law anyway, isn't it? If you're on the TA and you get deployed, by law, your company has to keep your job open. They can't get rid of you.
Yeah, and the territorial pay your rate that you earn at your work for them 2 weeks sort of thing. That's always been a thing, but the fact that companies are now putting that into a contract to outline stuff like that just tells me, do they know something we don't know and stuff like that? But conscription, how realistic at this stage would it be to implement something like that? And by this stage, I don't mean right now in real world, I mean Russia's just sent 32 missiles through, 40 missiles and 32 got through. Is conscription going to be instantly on the cards, Brian?
I think they'd have to be talking about it, because depending what their actions are going to be. I mean, is it to defend the homeland, or is it for force projection into Europe? It really depends, eh? Conscription
it would have to be based on defence, right? That you would sell it as based on defence. They're attacking our soil, they're at our gates. I mean,
if they're talking a total war scenario, it could even be retooling the country, and people are conscripted out of different jobs, not necessarily like the military, but you'd be conscripted to industry to do a totally different job, build all the things that go boom. So it doesn't necessarily mean you'll be standing with a rifle.
Yeah, all the car plants will turn into drone plants, right?
Yeah.
Andy, your views on conscription at this stage? Is it too late?
The whole reason, mate, why we were the best military in the world is we were volunteer based and professional. That's always why we've been the best. Now you bring conscription to that, all you're going to get is people who don't want to be there, and all you're going to do is dilute the guys who volunteered before this and the guys who are professional and who want to be there. The difference with World War II, Mix, I know someone's going to hit me with it, is that World War II was a unique situation in terms of we were going to be invaded.
Yeah.
And conscription was a thing, but a lot of guys volunteered because they knew what was at risk.
Mm-hmm.
There's a culture, mate, in the country that doesn't want to serve, that has no intention of serving. And if I'm honest, mate, I don't think I can blame them. Because what is it to come back to? So if conscription was a thing, mate, I don't think... I agree with Brian, mate, you would have to do it, but how realistic it would be and how many would... To be fair, mate, I'm just hopeless with that whole idea of conscription. I just really don't see it being a thing.
So would they just call everybody back?
What still Loggins is on about there is what I was on about with the contracts, and the wording in the contract is when/if they return. That's actually written in the contract. What when/if?
That's optimistic, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you mean by that, Hawkins, recalling? Do you mean like any overseas troops and stuff, or do you mean like people that have served within?
Yeah. People who serve, because the contract remains open for. Is it 8 years? I can't remember now. You guys,
I'm sure it's only 4 or 6 years, if I remember rightly. After you leave, Andy, can you remember?
Yeah, it's 4.
It's 4. Yeah.
It was 4 for me.
Yeah.
But even if it was 4 and that was now over, they'd still be much better conscripting the ex-squaddies back in than they would Joe Bloggs.
But then you have to think, mate, why have they left? Because they're disillusioned with the army anyway, or the Air Force or the Navy. So if someone comes to my door now and said to me, Andy, do you want to come back fight me? I'd be like, have some of that. I'm not doing anything for you at all. So
you're on. Hang on. You on our war room. You were on the fence with that one because you were remembering.
I was. To be fair, if like Brian said before, if it was conscription to defend the UK and I wasn't going anywhere, then I would jump on it. But I'm not leaving my family.
They're never going to guarantee that, though, right? They're going to say conscription to defend the UK, and then, like, 6 months down the line, it's like, okay, now we're going to take the fight to them. So it's a difficult one. The fact it's going into contracts is just a bit weird to me at this stage.
It's strange, mate. I don't know why. I don't know why that's a thing. I don't know who's thought that's a good idea, or where that's come from.
Can I throw an idea out?
Sure.
We're,
Duck.
we're talking about conscripting people for combat, which is something I tried to allude to earlier. I think you've got to bear in mind we're in an entirely different world now. It's every day has been an exponential use of drones and tech rather than bodies has got its place, but because of the size of the army and everything else, I think we'd be better off if they're going to conscript people. It would be for the fact that they've got a pair of hands to build more shit, to build more stuff and outproduce and just fling lots of drones, everything like that, drones, missiles, whatever, rather than bodies.
You wouldn't necessarily need conscription for that. You'd be turning workplaces over. So if you go to work every day and you're manufacturing vehicles or you're manufacturing car parts or you're part of Husqvarna doing lawnmowers or whatever, then suddenly you're going in and you're not doing robotic lawnmowers, you're doing things with propellers and little catch and release systems.
What I mean by that is with the conscription side, though, that the choice to sit in the house and watch Homes Under the Hammer whilst you're claiming your DLA as you're smoking 60 fags a day and 10 pints of Stella, that would be taken out of the equation and all the fluffy shite would go out the window and you'd be standing in a production line or sitting in a production line.
It's a good point. Do you think, I mean, we'd everything like that would have to stop, right? So a state of emergency would be declared. We're all aware of that. And when a state of emergencies are declared in other countries, when war happens, companies shut down, schools close, everything. We're talking lockdown times 10. So how are we going to cope with that side of things? Do you think as soon as somebody says lockdown in this country, there'll be people going, nope, not happening, not doing it, blah, blah, blah? Nobody.
I do think, mate, in terms of if that happened, I can see a positive side of that where community spirit would come back. Because like Brian said, mate, if you're all then, you know, seconded to work in a munitions factory, for example, but the schools are closed, somebody in the community, mate's going to have to pick up the slack where kids are concerned. You know, they're going to have to open, you know, a daycare, or somebody is going to have to take on that role, and the community is going to have to come together to get through it, which is the only positive upside that I see with it.
Yeah.
And also farming. We import a lot of food and we've got a lot more bodies than we had in the Second World War. So we would have to be utilising the manpower that's in the UK to do. So again, the conscription thing, they wouldn't all be fighting. You'd have people tilling the fields. People would have to work. They would be fishing, growing, everything, cutting down trees. They'd have to be forced to do it.
Yeah, I like the idea. Should do it anyway. Earn your wage. So,
just one on that, mate. I'm sure I've seen something in the news this week where the government say lots of things done, so it's nothing. I don't know how much I believe it, but they were saying that weren't they bringing back 3 munitions factories? Hadn't they approved them?
I've not seen.
They're going to build artillery. Yeah.
Was it in Sheffield? Have I got that right?
I think so. Yeah, they were going to build artillery. Factory.
That's what it was. That's why it jumped out.
Well, Alexander Dennis, the bus factory, is shutting down about 20 miles along the road.
Would you want to serve next to some long-haired, bearded, turkey-toothed, jogging, bottom-wearing, stroppy Gen Z?
That's what I think.
Can you answer that?
and Lee, mate, there is banging the money. Like I said, the reason why we were the best in the world is because we were a volunteer professional army. So when somebody's screaming and shouting at you, it motivates you and pushes you on. If you start screaming and shouting at a Gen Z, they're just going to sit down and cross their legs. And say,
that the whole point of basic training is to weed that out, to break them down, and to then build them up as new men, right? And you get lots of dropouts in that level at that stage. Yeah. But if dropping out's not an option, conscription, then it's going to be, it's probably just going to be comedy gold watching some of these people trying to get through it. I hope somebody makes a TV series of conscription in the UK.
I suppose, mate, as well, the sad thing about it is funny whilst you're seeing them do it until it comes to time to fight, and then you've got said person who was crying into his cup of tea because the sergeant said naughty words to him, and now you expect that same person to return fire when they're being shot at.
And the sad thing is, they won't be in their own little Gen Z regiment. They'll be amalgamated with regular troops, and that's the idea behind that, is so they can help them and guide them, but that puts their lives at risk. That puts the professional soldiers' lives at risk.
Yeah, like I said, mate, all that does is dilute the caliber that you've got. It just
yeah. As preppers, if conscription comes in and it's going to be 6 years in prison if you don't go, and it's to defend our own country, let's say we all answer the call, for argument's sake. Let's say Brian's a bit younger and he can answer the call.
Motherfucker. I said it was going to swear tonight. You can go and fuck yourself. I promised the wife before I went out, because there might be kids watching, and I'll try and be a bit nicer. Fuck you.
Should we be prepping, or should people be prepping before conscription to not be at home? Often we're getting told, like, I'm a prepper, but my husband or my wife is not involved, or they don't interest him, or they don't do anything. If conscription could be a realistic scenario, should we be prepping to not be there? Labeling everything, giving instructions, teaching, stuff like that.
Yes.
Brian? Yeah, go on. Yeah?
Could be. Try to. It's a hard sell.
But do you think if it's on the back of, listen, guys, I could be going to war, it'd be an easier sell?
Absolutely, 100%. And even if they didn't want to take the instruction, there would be a lot of post-it notes. There would be a book written up of how to use things and what to do, and some harsh realities about how people behave when shit goes wrong. They need to take on board.
Yeah. So definitely should be a consideration at that stage. Andy,
Sure.
if the call was there and you had to go, either way you're going to be leaving, because you're either going to prison or you're going to conscription. So should you be prepping Mrs. Bombardier and making sure she knows everything about the preps and what to do, etc.?
Yeah, she knows the score, mate.
Yeah?
Yeah, she'd be all right.
So you've already done that. It's covered.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, to be fair, mate, like, and I think I would do it more so in terms of, if they are volleying all these missiles like in war games, the chance of being displaced is quite high. So you're going to have to go somewhere, bugging in that essence is probably not an option.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you're going to have to leave. So, like I said before, mate, the grab bags that I've got for us are more pretty much refugee bags or displacement bags. You know what I mean? I haven't got like a bow and arrow and a knife and a tarp in there, and I'm going to go live in the woods for 3 years. All the stuff that's in my bag, mate, would be to get me to another safe place that's under hardcover. So the way my bags are set up, mate, would already be for that scenario anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think, would it be an easier sell? I think it would be to a lot of people if something kicked off. I think, if you started saying to them, look, this is likely an option that I'm going to go away. We need to have a conversation about X, Y, and Z and what to do if I'm not here. I think it would be an easier sell.
Yeah. Definitely, and you should look at that on scales as well. Anybody that is like Andy, ex-military, or had any sort of training like that, then really consider it, because you'd be in the first wave. Hawkins, would you need to, or could you prep Mrs. Hawkins and teach her everything and be ready for that?
I could. How long it would take before I got conscripted would be another matter. She could probably die in this house with enough supplies to last for a year, and she wouldn't be au fait with everything. But I'd go for the work from home job in the army, just being a drone pilot from the garage with a Starlink setup and solar. That would,
he thinks he has a choice.
Typical Royal Engineer, mate. Wants to stay at home and pay from his garage.
Still wants his medal, though, Andy. Still wants his medal.
Yeah,
absolutely. Participation award. That'd be the dream job. But no, we'd have to step things up a bit. She'd have to be run through systems and how they work, and I'd have to write some. And I should really do that anyways. Write some operational guides for how to do certain things and whatnot. But yeah.
So with the world the way it is at the moment, with this war games scenario, lots of things being true to real life, scarily so, especially in the first episode, we can see these things happening now. Is it not something you should start now?
Yes, it probably is. And to be fair, when the solar got installed the other day, I showed her how to flick already the like it's falling asleep already. But how to turn the power over so that the solar can power the entire house. Do you know what I mean?
Jesus Christ.
I don't think I'll be able to teach her how to set the Starlink up and things, or backup comms and whatnot. But yeah, you're right. There's probably a lot of processes that she needs walking through.
Yeah, I think it should be a consideration for a lot of people because, I mean, not just for Conscription and Wartime, but I hate to say it, could be hit by a bus tomorrow and then the shit could hit the fan 3 days later. So, don't leave your loved ones hanging. Make sure you've got something in place. Even if it is, like Brian says, a little prepping Bible, which is in the first box. So when they open it, they say, oh, you've got to do this for this, and, just point them in the right direction. Andy, if this war games goes to the point of they give up straight away sort of thing, can you prep for occupation?
Ooh, good question, mate. I don't.
Difficult one, isn't it? Because
it is difficult, mate. I mean, first of all, you would assume if you are being occupied, I think, and I don't do, but I know some of you guys do, and a lot of guys in the chat do. I think if that became a real possibility, I think cashing your preps would have to be the number one case.
100%.
Because they're just going to come door to door, mate, and take whatever you have, and they are not going to care about the indigenous population. So first off, that would be the first thing. You would have to cash things, and you'd have to, cash things, and you'd have to take. Other than that, mate, I mean, you probably can, mate, but what you would realistically need to do, you probably can't talk about on YouTube.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like,
it's gonna get worse in a minute. It's fine. You can talk. Listen, open forum, guys. All right, I'll take the risk. It's fine. Brian, prepping for occupation. You'd agree with that? Stashing away everything, hiding stuff under floorboards, under stairs, etc., or burying it in the garden.
When I wouldn't have anything here that I didn't want them to find. I would deliberately hide stuff in the house so that they could find it, because they would expect to find something. The problem would arise if they turn your house over and they don't find any hidden stashes, right? At that point, you're going to get a kicking, or somebody in your family is going to get tortured until you give it up. So I would suggest you would have a sacrificial stash to let them find under a few floorboards or in a cupboard. Everything else, midnight walks, drives with a car, 30-litre plastic barrels, buried, different locations.
Yeah. Cool. Hawkins, what would about you for that kind of situation?
Similar. You try and make caches that can be found, and secret caches. But if it's anything like Ukraine was at the start of the war, it turned into very quickly. You wouldn't have time to be doing that because everybody in the streets preparing Molotov cocktails and handing out AKs to people, weren't they? And your time might be taken up starting your civil defence on whatever the government can hand out.
Well, so at this stage, we're asking about occupation. So everything's been given up. There's no, that they're literally in control. So preps for occupation, would it just be stashing stuff for you?
Stashing stuff and probably trying to learn Russian so I could understand what was being said.
Yeah, it's not an easy language to pick up.
No.
So on the other foot of that, can we prep for resistance?
Yes.
Yes, and I'm saying no more. It is resistance with something. Would people is the question, Brian?
Yes, you could, but would you?
Yeah, would you?
That is the thing.
Well, if he offers lower taxes.
It entirely depends on the situation. Yeah, you're right. It depends on.
Anything's better than Starmer. You've got my vote. Jesus. Hawkins is already a sympathiser. He's already turned over. He's flying the red flag.
Somebody said in the chat, it might actually be better under the Russians. Yeah, they've got a point. It might. Yeah. But it would depend on how the social situation deteriorated. If they were doing bad things to the populace and your situation was bad and you felt you had nothing else to lose, then quite possibly would. But I mean, Most people have got families, they might have children. It's a big risk, yeah.
Yeah.
I think preppers make naturally prep for resistance anyway, don't they? Whether it's resistance to a natural disaster, whether it's resistance to COVID, whether it's resistance to losing your job. Do you know what I mean? Preppers by nature, mate, really are resistant to a lot of things. That's what they're prepping for.
So do you think that mentality would almost create its own resistance in that?
Yeah, I think it would. I think you would be more if you have a prepper mindset anyway, mate, and you're watching this stream, for example. Resistance to you would be, in my opinion, would be second nature, and it would be right. We need to dig in, and we need to fight back. We need to put some kind of resistance up to protect what we've got and what we've built. Yeah, because that's essentially, mate, I see what preppers do anyway. Like I say, against natural disaster, against, you know.
So on that then, Andy, what should there be things people look at getting as part of their prepping? We talked briefly about army surplus last time and like the S10s and stuff like that and anything. Should people be looking at having a little box of camouflage, anti-resistance kind of stuff? You know, is that something they should prep?
To be fair, mate, I don't know why, but most preppers are so anti-camouflage. It is unbelievable. Everybody thinks they're going to walk about in a grey 3-piece suit, and the Russians just got to leave them alone. So I don't think.
Grey man.
I don't think many preppers are into camouflage stuff anyway.
Yeah, but should they? Well, if they were prepping for this,
there's like that the military issued sleep system, bivy bag, sleeping bag, outward inner. That, mate, will serve you all year round in the UK for all weather types. So that in itself, mate, is a group to have anyway, regardless of occupation or regardless of, you know, resistance or anything we're talking about tonight. So in my opinion, everyone should have one of them anyway.
Yeah, but if there's a resistance formed and it is naturally of preppers because we're that unsurvivalist, because we're of that mindset, Brian's not going to be stood there at the front door handing out uniforms for the prepper resistance. So should people have something, you know, even if it's not something, they don't have to walk around every day wearing DPM or MTP, but should they have something?
Can I be upfront and honest? I'm going to snitch you for a can of Pepsi. I'm going to chop these all.
Don't worry, mate. Hawkins is first on my list. I'll be like, there's a Royal Engineer who lives in York. He's got a whole new solar array fitted.
Correction.
In there, and you can
correction. The new drink, which will be Pepsi. Yeah, Andy, do you not think like if literally somebody had just had a set of camouflage clothes in a box, in a bag, is that not a good prep to have for something like that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's just a standard. I go a lot of I do have camouflage stuff, but I mean a lot of stuff I wear, mate, would be like olive green, ranger green.
Yeah.
You know, those types of muted colours.
Yeah.
And they would do just as well, mate, if you're in an urban environment and you were putting up a resistance, as we say. And there's also an element of, mate, the whole point of wearing a uniform is so you know who your friends are.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Like you see in Ukraine, mate, they all wear the yellow or the blue armbands, don't they?
Yeah.
And that's so they know who the friendlies are. So there's a couple of options why you would wear it. I mean, it's hard wearing, it's cheap. You would be able to identify friendlies easier.
Would it just make us better equipped as a resistance in general as well?
Yeah, I think it would. You know, there's a reason why. There's several reasons why militaries wear uniforms. So yeah, it would do. I mean, if you're talking purely for a resistance type of situation, then I could see it work.
Yeah, I mean, anything. If they decided to start the home guard and the old guard and stuff like that, if you remember the opening sequences to when Dad's army first started, they started off with no uniforms and one had an old uniform, one had a pitchfork. So I suppose the more stuff you've got to start with is going to stand you in good stead if something did happen, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, people say all the time about, you know, camouflage is useless in an urban environment. What gives you in an urban environment is movement.
Yeah.
So irregardless of whatever you're wearing, if you run past the window, if you think because you've got DPN on, someone's going to spot you, but you haven't, you've got a great Arc'teryx jacket on, someone's spotting movement, and
Yeah.
somebody knows where you are. So that whole concept, mate, and I appreciate Greyman does have. I think Greyman, mate, has a place in peacetime, a big place in peacetime. I agree.
But I think
when
people
you're
rely
talking
too
about
heavily on it.
Yeah, they think that you just got to be fair, mate, a lot of people think you turn into a grey man, you just turn into a ghost.
Yeah.
And you can just slip through and no one's going to see you. And it just doesn't work that way.
No, not at all. Not at all. Hawkins, can we convince you to buy some DPM or MTP?
I'm pondering this while reading a response from Jammy Dodger in the chat, which says, "Deluded if you think Russia is going to come here. They have more than enough land and trillions of dollars in resources. What the fuck have we got?" And I'm sitting there pondering that, thinking, unless they were coming just to occupy us, which, why would they? I can't imagine why they would be in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, you're thinking that with a logical head. Why, why would any dictator want to overthrow another country that's maybe lesser off than them? It's just power, it's land, it's it's old vendettas. It could be any reason.
He doesn't like Starmer, so yeah. But back to the DPM, I suppose I probably should buy something, but this is just now Andy trying to make me spend money like Brian does. So
I'm getting to play him again.
Well, I deflected a little bit to Andy there, but yeah, no, I probably there's no harm in for the cost of it. It's not expensive kit, is it? As you say, it's hard wearing.
Yeah, no, yeah,
probably worth having a bit about.
My DPM jacket that I've had since 2001, I was wearing today at the car boot sale just because it's got so many pockets I can have all the change. But it's there's no holes in it. It's not worn down. It's not lost its color. Trust me, they last a long time. That's 25 years old sort of thing. So
it's dual purpose, really. Because if I was to wear my ghillie suit to the car boot, I'd probably get laughed at. So yeah, DPM is probably a bit more.
You've not seen some of the people walking around a car boot, clearly.
It would be the Royal Engineer flashing around that made people laugh at the ghillie suit. just one on that, mate. On the when Hawkins just mentioned there about why would Russia come here?
Mm-hmm.
I suppose, mate, that there's from their point of view, you could use it as a staging platform to go into mainland Europe. We do have
there you go.
We do have American military bases here that are secret and classified. So if you took over the whole country and you managed to get inside them, I'm assuming somebody more experienced than me would know they're probably linked up to some type of American military network. If you could get into there and find out what they had or what they knew, that's another option. And there's also, mate, the propaganda side of it. Imagine the propaganda boost you would get in Russia if you were Putin. You say we've just overtook the UK.
Yeah. Yeah, secret classified US bases, and they have a 4-lane bowling alley as lasers. It's cool.
Sadly, the best place to take first would be Scotland and push down south because you've got less population.
But you got to deal with all them pissheads. It's going to be just, But
right, mate? Can you? Because I used to be in the Lowland Gunners, which is Scottish regiment, right? And I've seen Scottish people on Buckfast. If you think for a second that Russians are dropping into Scotland and just walking through it, no hope.
I don't think they. I think there would be a certain amount of friction. But
the best thing that could happen for us is for Russians to drop into Scotland and the Scottish would just take them out, and that would be the end of the invasion. That would generally be the best thing for us. Scottish regiments are nails. They are hard bastards. That would be the best thing for us, honestly. Just drop them into Scotland. Scottish should just wipe them out.
Without ammo. War is very expensive. It is indeed. I think I'm at the end of mine sort of thing. The last question I have is regarding the podcast and regarding conscription and all of that is, do we think the government stance is starting to change? We've seen him make this promise of an increase in GDP, which I know it's a ridiculous timeline on it. But do you think we're starting to see a waver and a change, and could we start to see more preparedness and more resilience given to the nation from the government? Open forum. No. Anyone wants to? No?
It's lipstick in a pig. talk is cheap. Show me. We're talking about opening factories. We're talking about putting it up. Do it. Just do it. Don't talk about it. Just do it. The wolf's at the door now. We don't have time to talk about it. It's like your scenario when we spoke about it earlier. We'll look at it tomorrow. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Fuck tomorrow. Do it today. Do it now.
Yeah, like Brand said, mate, there's an old saying, like, judge a tree by the fruit it bears, not the fruit it talks about. And it's all good and well, mate, saying that you want to increase defence spending to 3.5%. But when you put 30, 20, 34 to it, it means nothing. Like if he said, mate, today, right, 3.5% from today, and that's getting pumped in, but like, oh, fair enough, they've changed their, there's some good use here. They've got some, they've got some initiative, they've got some purpose. There's a sense of urgency that they see what we need to do. But 9 years, he's not even going to be in power.
Yeah,
it's like you say, it's just a token piece, mate, for people to think he's taking action, and he's not. He's not even going to be there in 9 years.
No, he's going to be doing speeches for money, but I don't know who's going to pay for that. Hawkins, do you think the government's going to start to wake up at some point, anytime in the near future?
It feels like society is slowly opening its eyes, because all the newspaper articles are starting to lean more towards what we're talking about. I don't think it's being pushed as much as it needs to be, but I think there's something being subtly pushed onto the population, whether it's to put us on a bit of a war footing, whether it's just as a distraction, whether it's just to try and pump money into the armed forces, whatever it is. But like you guys are saying, it's too little too late. It feels like if something was to kick off, it's going to be soonish, and we're not going to be in a position to do much about it. So, yeah.
I mean, the worst thing about it, like I said before, the reason in World War II why lads were volunteering in the droves was because they had something to fight for, they had something to come home for, and they had a country that loved. That culture, mate, is not there anymore in the UK.
No,
not there at all. So even if you do throw money at the problem, and it does need money, I'm not saying it doesn't, but you spend all that money, mate, on kit, equipment, logistics, it's still good, mate, having 300 planes and no pilots.
Yeah.
It's just a waste of money then.
Yeah, definitely. I just need to say a £10 donation on PayPal from Graham, who says, to say be the best, get the best. Pepsi for all conscripts.
There you go. There's something to fight for.
Thank you for the donation. Pepsi. I'd want to circle. I hope nobody's pressed for time really quickly.
No,
but
I'm going to go, mate.
We've not discussed cyber warfare, which is probably the most likely. And we've not discussed potential cells. Now, we talk about cells with like the Iran thing and stuff like that, but Russia could have them. Like these 2 pilots were killed in the start of this podcast by a Russian agent. What about attacks from within, Brian? Do you think we're going to see that on this podcast? And do you think that's something that we should be looking at as well?
Arguably, you've already seen it when the pilots get nailed, and you'll see more of it because it's a full theatre, a full spectrum warfare. It's going to be drones below the waves, above the waves, on land, in the air, satellites. Everything's going to take a hit. You could take out a country's infrastructure without firing a bullet, without dropping a bomb. So, yeah, 100%.
And should cyber be a response that we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have the conventional forces. Even if it was, say we could do something to bugger up the logistics of the Russian Federation, for talk's sake, delete the database of where their missile stocks are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take out their targeting databases, whatever, but basically if you were to delete the logs of where they kept and stored all their kit, all their missiles and everything else, that could take days, weeks, whatever. It might buy you time till they actually have to physically go and count all the shit.
Yeah, sorry. I can picture Brian stood in a kilt with a can of Frey Bentos and a can of Pepsi yelling freedom. Andy, the terrorist cells side of things, obviously that's a constant that's a constant threat in the UK anyway. It's probably why we're always at a certain bikini alert level kind of thing. But well, it's not that anymore. It's not bikini anymore, is it? But we're always at like a kind of alert level because of terrorism. If the Russian agents have killed 2 pilots in this thing, surely they've got other people's resources on the ground.
Yeah. The amount of resources, mate, intelligence and skill it takes to pull that off. There would be a number of them in the country, a high number. And
as a completely theoretical opinion, do you think we have assets like that in their country?
No.
No?
No. Not in the slightest.
No, not Ethan Hunts or anything, no?
No, I don't mean no. I don't think there's and I know it all the time, mate, but the state of the military is that poor. It is that poor. We don't have the money, the infrastructure, the resources to have somebody. Personally, I don't believe we do. 100% definitely not to the level that the Russians would have.
Yeah.
In this scenario.
And the same for cyber attacks, right? We've got a lot of cyber defense people, but would we have the ability to attack them through cyber, do you think? Do you think we've got enough resource that way as well?
Yeah, I don't think. Personally, mate, I could be wrong. You know more than me, mate. You're the IT guy. Does cyber warfare take that much resource other than a guy with an internet connection? I don't know whether it does.
Takes knowledge and lots of processing power and stuff like that. But what Brian's just turned into mate.
Somebody complained about the light in the chat. So he said it.
I tell you what, it's a visual improvement. I like it. We'll go with it.
the thing with Russia as well, mate, which is they don't play by any rules, none, and I equate them to Al Qaeda and the Taliban, mate. I agree with Will survive this, by the way. If that's how it will end. The Russians, mate, a lot like the Taliban and Al Qaeda. They don't play by any rules.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the Taliban made IEDs and all the nasty stuff they did that we never touched.
Yeah.
The Russians made the same.
You think?
Yeah, 100%.
You think on that mentality? Do you think they would target more civilian stuff?
Yeah, 100%. They do not care, mate, about their outward look. They don't care what the rest of the world thinks about them. It's purely based internally in what they think of themselves. So they could blow up anything, for example, and the propaganda in that country would be, we were using it for a military purpose and we've taken it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't a bus full of school kids. It was special operations.
Yeah, exactly.
In school uniform. Yeah. Hawkins, cyber attacks and terrorist cells, is there real threats at this stage?
Yes, we've talked about before, there's probing going on all the time, isn't there? Not Brian sort of probing, cyber attack probing by the Russians. Get the fingers into things, take down banking systems, supermarkets. That's just playing about, isn't it? It's whether they're in the power infrastructure and telecommunications and things. But yeah, I think it's a very reasonable threat vector. And I think if it was to kick off, that would be the first. That and the undersea fiber and power cables to just either get cut or go boom, one or the other.
I mean, Steph Emma just had a great comment in the chat there. Shout out to Steph. She put, don't forget Salisbury. We're so quick to forget what goes on. That was only 2018, wasn't it? Was it 2018?
Yes, something like that. Yeah,
you know what I mean? That's only 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point.
Will Survival said, you said there, mate, about Wagner forces. Russia isn't the force. Yeah, there you go. And he's right, mate. I was listening to something on YouTube yesterday. I think it was from the Times. And they were saying that Russian casualties stand at 1 million.
Depends on your point. Yeah, but it depends who's publishing that figures, isn't it? According to them, they've hardly got any, and then they've got this body exchange thing going on, and Ukraine are giving a lot less over to them than they're giving to Ukraine.
But I mean, I read something before, mate, where the reason why Putin had to do it now, or had to do it 2 years ago, was because of the decline in population and the amount of men he had. If he didn't do it then, he wouldn't have enough troops and he wouldn't have enough capability to carry through the mission to Ukraine. So whilst they have this, right, mate, they're not the force it is in terms of manpower, but ammunition they are.
Mm.
And like I said on that Friday episode, mate, when I was in work the other day, and the lads wanted about that they took out an entire battle group of Ukrainians in 17 minutes. 2,500 men in 17 minutes. And
Wow.
that's the capability they have. They might not have the manpower, but the 100% have the ammunition and they have the equipment to easily empty a grid square and take all them blocks out.
And who's to say at this stage if it's just Russia alone? Right?
Yep.
So you've got that potential access, that bricks, as it were. Miss Worm there put Salisbury was 4th of March 2018. Thank you for that. We've got some questions for Brian because Storage Mouse says I've seen that face through my window at night.
I would just like to say on that, right? The reaction puts us both off. It puts me at risk being on that ladder. I've only got one hand to hold onto the ladder. So screaming just puts me off.
Wow. Right, let's get these last few questions in, then we can end this. The last few comments. Miss Worm said, when my dad was conscripted for World War II, he was the manager of a very large Woolworths. Oh, I remember Woolworths. Great pick and mix. It was free as well. When he came back, they demoted him, made him under manager of a small branch. Nothing changes. They won't honour it. So there you go. Rabsi Nesbitt would have a lot in common with the average Russian soldier. They could drink booze and understand each other fluently. There we go. So Scotland can be our negotiation point. Brian Keane, would war bring back the great English people who built and invent great stuff? Well, nothing. There's nothing like a war to increase technology. That's what I will say. Every technology leap we've had, massive technology leap, has been down to wartime production. So you're right in a way, Brian.
So when it comes to make weapons, right? There's 3 stages of how you classify a weapon. Now the top classification is combat tested or combat proved.
Yeah.
The reason why Ukraine is so profitable is because Raytheon, Thales, Lockheed Martin can send all those weapons to Ukraine, test them, see how they work, and then they get the top classification, combat tested and proven, and that's why their stock. That's why their stock mate goes through the roof in times of war.
Right. Okay, that's good to know.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is why, mate. And I know it sounds a bit conspiracy theory-esque. That's why the military industrial complex does not want that war to end, because they're making money hand over fist.
Yeah. Just don't want it to spread too much, right?
Yeah.
Got to be in moderation. Snapdragon, do we think the government are silently panicking? No, well, they just blame the $22 billion black hole, right? That's the reason for everything.
I think they are.
Yeah.
I think he is on all fronts, because I saw today that he's announced that there's going to be a national inquiry into what everybody wanted.
Oh yes, I know.
If that isn't a panic move, I don't know what is.
Yeah, but I mean that could be domestic panic, right? Because he doesn't want riots and disorder in the streets, so he has to do that inquiry that we're talking about.
But I think, mate, he's panicking on all fronts, and the military is just one of them.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any thoughts on that? Government panicking?
I think they
Not
are.
it should be.
You what? Sorry.
I was saying, I think they are behind closed doors. Yeah.
Yeah. And so why are we not seeing the action then? Why is it a 10-year plan to increase the spending budget?
They don't have any money. We're broke. We're paying out billions to things we shouldn't be. We've got a busted social welfare system. We've got a broken NHS. The military needs money. NHS needs money. We've got no heavy industry anymore. And all these things are clamouring at the same time for attention. He's like a fish out of water. He didn't know what to do. Everything's broken.
The NHS doesn't need money. Sorry, I just want to throw that out there. It doesn't need money. It needs restructuring, reorganising, and someone who knows how to use the fucking money it gets. That's what the NHS needs. It gets enough money. It's just organised and ran terribly.
I would agree with that.
I think, mate, the reason why the military's not getting the money, like Brian said, is because that's probably maybe 6 on his list to panic about.
Yeah.
And I don't think the electorate, that may be the 6th most important thing to the electorate. If you go and ask ordinary people what they're worried about, everybody knows what the answer is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is why he's doing what he's doing. If I guarantee you, mate, if the military was #1 on the electorate and everyone was terrified of Russia, that 2034, mate, would be a 2026 target.
Yeah. Right. So it's purely based on a vote grab, right?
Yeah, 100%. Oh, of course it is, mate. Now that he's got power, he doesn't want to lose it.
Oh, he's going to.
Yeah, of course he is. But that's why he's doing. That's why he's doing whatever he can.
I could run for the next general election and no one else, and I'd still get more votes than him in the next one. Hawkins, were you going to say something there as well?
No, sorry, didn't say a thing there.
All right, okay. It was your facial expression, that's all.
Okay.
Is all this World War III program a government distraction? I wouldn't like to say that they definitely don't, but I don't think the government has a hand in Sky News as much as it does like BBC and stuff like that.
I think, mate, if this was pushed advertising wise a lot more, then maybe I'd give you an element of maybe that's true. But the only reason I knew about was because Miss Worm told me. Yeah. So the fact that it hasn't been pushed everywhere.
Yeah, it's not widely spoke about.
No.
But on the other foot as well, it wasn't like last month or the month before, the last couple of months that me, Lee, other people as well have had reporters galore approaching us for like the radio and stuff like that, and that was BBC as well. So do you think there is something there in that somewhere? That they're getting people to know about prepping a bit more, and that could be the distraction?
No, it was just the story of the day, mate. It was because a recent occurrence had prompted it to be topical. Therefore, they wanted to strike while iron was hot. Within a couple of days, it was yesterday's news, and it was still the rat packs again.
Yeah. There you go. Brum Prep, thank you for the £2 super chat as well. Reality is stranger than fiction. Something will or may have already happened, but the public are being kept in the dark. This podcast seems more instructive than speculative. Well, we'd have to see how it ends, really, to see that, right?
To be fair, mate, like on that, I'm more inclined to believe, right, that it's instructive than speculative, because in what sense is it propaganda? Who is it propaganda for? Russia? Because when that war games, we are dog shit.
Yeah, so it's not making us look good at all.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what propaganda is. It propaganda to say we are dog shit?
You've got it. It's Russian-sponsored propaganda on Sky News.
Yeah, like I don't like what is it? Do they hope that all the British public are going to watch it and think, yeah, we want 10% of GDP whacked on defence? If it was, why isn't that pushed more?
Yeah. Great Books Read Aloud says government panic. Yes. Watch for the false flag operations over the next few days to put blame on anyone but the government, or at least give them something else to talk about other than their failures. There you go.
Apparently we've still got enough money to send planes over to get ready to shoot down missiles as well.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, but that's our, we're the nice neighbours, we always have been. We are 3.1 trillion in debt and produce next to nothing. We are bankrupt.
Hey, to be fair, if that second episode of War Games came out, after we sent those planes away, they could have got all 40 on the ground instead of 32.
There you go. I mean, that's the only other thing that I think would have been a good prelude to this, that there was something else going on like that as Israel or China and Taiwan, something like that had kicked off, which then Russia thought we'll take advantage of this moment because our ships wouldn't be in port and our planes might be over there. So I think that's why people think, oh, it's opening up on all fronts. That's because one triggers the other, because it's an opportunity.
Yeah. So somebody go on, Brian.
Sorry, I was going to see if you liked the podcasts. Read 2006 Total War. It is a scenario almost like that, and of the same sort of style. and you will
Yeah.
love it. It's exactly like that, and it's a fantastic read. Just while we're on the topic.
So earlier, mate, in the chat, somebody was on about when me and Brian were on about the only being 8 planes and 8 pilots.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody in the chat rightly said that we've got, like, I think off the top of my head, 158 Typhoons or something.
Yeah.
So why you want to talk about 8 planes? The reason I'm saying 8 planes is because we don't have 158 pilots. We don't have 158 ways to arm them. We don't have 158 that are maintained and ready to fly. And we don't have 158 capable crews to man them and get them to go. So I'm saying 8 planes because that realistically, in my pessimistic attitude with the state of the military, that's all I think we could muster up.
Yeah. At a moment's notice, combat ready. Yeah.
So physically, we might have 158 that are sat on various runways, but we don't have the means to fly them or use them.
There you go. We'll have to commandeer all them Jet 2 pilots. An acquaintance of mine subcontracted for the NHS. They would pay £168 for a single light bulb. Case in point. Thank you, Miss Worm.
So today, interesting little bit of info, right? So today I went back to where I'm from, Thornaby, to see my dad, because obviously it's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, guys, by the way. I know you've all got kids.
Thank you.
And over the road, there used to be, like, there was a woman called Paulette. She's a lovely old lady, and she used to do, like, all the old ladies' hair.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say it is now it's gone. The shop's gone. And she sold it. She's moved on. But anyway, a couple of years ago when I was in the army, her grandson went in the RAF to be a fighter pilot.
Mm-hmm.
So this would have been, I'd been in there in a while, so this is probably around about 2015. So it was 9 years ago. So she'd went to his passing out parade to be a fighter pilot in the RAF. So they'd had the meal, they'd done the passing parade, everyone was buzzing, we're going to be fighter pilots. And the head of the RAF who was on that camp stood up and said, right, guys, you are now released your contracts. And everyone was like, what do you mean? And he's like, we've got no planes for you to fly. So I'll just go home. That's it, you finished in the RAF. Fuck.
Yeah.
So that again, mate, is another thing where I'm saying we've got 158 aircraft, but when you're training pilots, and then when you get to the end, you realise there's nothing for them to fly, you just release them. And then off the back of that, Paulette paid a lot of money for him to get his commercial pilot license. And then he went to fly for EasyJet or Jet2 or whatever it was. I can't remember now. Yeah.
That explains some of the pilots that I've been a passenger of when they're coming in like this.
Yolando.
Yolando didn't need the barrel roll, but I think that is it for our questions. So yeah, I think that's it. We'll look forward to the 3rd episode, which I will do another reaction video on, because despite 1 or 2 pessimistic comments, the videos are too long. It's as long as the podcast. What can I do? Most people have said they want me to carry on with them, so I'm going to do another reaction video for that one. Brian, just enough time to tell 172 people to go and subscribe to Scottish Prepper 72. So tell them why.
Because it might be raining outside. There's nothing better to do. You could always turn it on and just type some random insults after watching one of my videos. That seems to be the norm at the moment. I like to do talks and demonstrations on most power-related things for prepping, or other types of things that interest me. So, body armor, bulletproof vest testing, walkie-talkies, radios, mesh-tastic, anything like that interests me. I try and do a little thing on it, or topical things on the power grid. When I think it's going to go wrong, why I think it's going to go wrong, that sort of shit.
Cool, there you go. So Miss Worm will post the link in there for Brian's channel. Make sure you go and check that out. And Andy, tell us all about the Bombardier and why the people should go and see this.
So on my channel there's a lot of military-based stuff, but not from the typical infantry perspective. A lot of mine's from the combat support role. So you see a lot more stuff that I would say is civilian-friendly. So that's the aspect I come from. And like I said the other night on Friday, mate, when us 3 were on talking about the aileron thing, a lot of my stuff, mate, is probably quite relevant, my experience, because I was missile based. So a lot of the stuff that we talk about now is quite relevant with my experience in it.
Yeah.
So that's the fun, mate. There's kit and equipment going on, and like I say, tomorrow that video will be going up of the solar panel that Brian helped me with. And I've also managed to get hold of one of those elusive Survivor 58 water bottles that everybody raved about, that are like rocking our shit. I've managed to get one of them, mate, so they are coming tomorrow. So I'll definitely get that solar panel one out because it's already here. And then after that Survivor 58 one will be going out, and then I'll let everyone know where I got it from.
Cool. Yeah. Well, you don't want to miss that one. So make sure you go and subscribe to Andy's link, which is there. Hawkins, you don't have a channel, but do you want to tell us all about how good Coca-Cola is? No?
I just wanted to say, don't watch Brian's channel because he's got shares in EcoFlow, and you'll just end up spending money on deltas.
That's an anchor power bank, just for the record.
So you're diversifying your portfolio. Well done.
And of course, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, hopefully in the next week or so, I'll be spanking a couple of £1,000 on new power banks, so there'll be more videos coming up.
Yeah. And
are you going to sell your old ones for cheap then, Bri?
No.
No.
Good try, though.
But if he gets conscripted, Mrs. Scottish Prepper will.
Hey, that would be tenner. I was going to say that'd be a winner as well, because he said they were tenner, so we'd get them for a £5.
Yes, thank you also to Miss Worm, our awesome moderator, the best moderator on this whole platform, who gives up her time for all of these live streams, no matter what time it is. So thank you very much. Go and check out her channel, which is Scary Stories and some cool stuff there. And she's a published author as well, so check out her book. She really does a lot for us, so we really appreciate that. One last word from me is all my links are always in the videos if you want to support in any way, which is always great. None of us on here proclaim to be experts or anything like that. Anyone proclaiming to be a total expert in everything and you should do everything they say is on cloud cuckoo land and will cause you danger. I'm here to learn. I make mistakes, as do all of these gentlemen here who are not too humble to say it, and we will say it when it happens. But
Hawkins
thank you.
Isn't that humble.
He's not.
I've never made a mistake.
That's why he's not got a channel. It's fine. But genuinely, thank you for your continued support. We will continue to do what we do as long as you guys keep turning up, watching us on these stupid 2-hour lives. Brian, final thoughts and goodbyes.
Thanks for turning out on a Sunday. It's always good chat, and nice to see everybody in the chat box putting their comments in. Thank you.
Hawkins?
Happy Father's Day, and thanks for the entertainment.
Andy, any final thoughts and goodbyes?
Yeah, thanks everybody, guys, for tuning in, and thanks for the people in the chat and the comments. And thanks to people like World Survivalist, mate, because he puts stuff in there, mate, that challenges the way I think, especially when it comes to military defence. So I like people who in the chat, mate, who make me think about, different perspectives and different ways I see the military. So thanks, guys, for challenging the narrative that we provide here as well.
Yeah, and
the chat is really good, isn't it?
Yeah,
you might not always respond to everything, but I think we all read it in the background, and we're all sniggering away and laughing to ourselves as we're reading some of the comments. We don't get time to talk about them all, really.
Yeah, and that's exactly why the Discord is so good as well, because we get that same sort of feedback. We're all here to learn as well, and we want you to challenge what we're saying. We want to talk about it. We want to either justify our opinions or change our minds. So we're here to learn as well. Thank you, everyone. Don't forget, like, subscribe, leave a comment, all that lovely stuff that the algorithm likes. We've hit 1 million views. Woo! 1 million views on the channel, so thank you so much for that support. Awesome milestone for me. Might not be any biggie for anyone else, but thank you very much, and we'll see you all in another video soon. Goodbye.
Round the fire, warm and bright, stocked up food for the night. Got our plans set in gold for the days when it's cold. Tools and gear stacked up high in the cabin we reside, listening to the winds howl, prepping for the morning's prowl. At the purpose fireside we stay, ready for that fateful day. Stories shared and hearts alight, round the fire every night. Water stored in jugs and tins, bunkered down through thick and thin. Maps and routes all drawn and laid, preppers live unafraid. At the preppers' fireside we stay, ready for that fateful day. Stories shared and hearts alight, round the fire every night. In the glow of embers dance, we've prepared for every chance. Living simple, living true, with the dream we all pursue. In the glow of embers dance, we've prepared for every chance. Living simple, living true, with the dream we all pursue.